Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Namaste. Welcome to the session 9 of our course Yoga and Positive Psychology for Managing Career and Life. Today's session is focused on ways of attaining well-being in yogic perspective. A quick recap as we do in beginning of most of our sessions. So, we thus far in the course have discussed about purpose of the course, notion of well-being in positive psychology and yogic tradition, some introduction to it. We discussed about the constituents of human self, Panchatattvas, 5 sheath, Panchakoshas. We discussed about the doshas, Agni, Malakriya, holistic and integral perspective of well-being given in the Ayurvedic literature, metaphysics behind notion of self in yogic tradition, because that is very essential to understand the notions about well-being, human life, career choice, etc. And what happiness and well-being is, how it can be defined. That is what we looked at in the last session, in the 8th session, where we looked at the well-being from the Indian perspective and in the yogic perspective is about hedonistic experiences, but also collectivist and transcendental. So, what is the next obvious question? So, next question is how one can achieve that well-being, or that is why the title of this session is ways of attaining well-being. And of course, we are following the tradition of yoga, and we are also looking at the literature of positive psychology to understand these questions. To understand the ways of attaining well-being, we first need to understand the Indian worldview. We very briefly talked about it in the last session when we were describing the definition of swasthya, but in this session we need little more discussion on the notion of well-being. So, notion of well-being or Wohltätigkeit, it is a German word popularized in the Kant literature. Worldview means a view used to describe one's an overall conception of reality and human existence rooted in existential experiences of life. So, there are quite a few synonyms of well-being, like philosophy of life, self and world construct system, cultural orientation, core culture, etc. Most of these terms indicate similar thing. What definition we are referring in this session is given by Kluckhohn and Strodbach. More detail of the Indian worldview can be found in this book chapter recently published. What Kluckhohn and her colleagues have identified, that there are certain values based on which we can understand the worldview of any culture. So, one, what is relationship between humanity and its natural environment. The relationship, whether it is defined in terms of getting mastery over environment, submission over environment, or harmony over environment. By the way, Indian perspective and yogic perspective not only talks about the harmony, it certainly does not talk about the mastery and submission, it talks about transcending the natural boundaries of the human self. We have had discussion earlier and we are going to have more discussion on that. The second aspect what Kluckhohn suggests to understand the worldview is about time. That means, what aspect of time should people primarily focus? Are they focused on present, past and future? So, nature of time and space, that is the second component to understand the worldview. 3. What is the nature of human nature? Whether human nature is essentially good, bad or mixture. Fourth aspect to understand the worldview is what is the prime motivation for behavior? To express oneself, that is being, to grow, that is being in becoming, or to achieve something, that is doing. The fifth aspect of worldview is how should individuals relate with others, other fellow human being primarily. So, is it hierarchical manner, is it as equals, which is called collateral, or according to their individual merit, which is individualism. So, these are the components based on which we can understand the worldview of any culture. Let us look at what Indian worldview would be if we follow this schema to understand that. In the Indian worldview, the nature of reality and connection of human being with environment is of integral perspective. So, human being and environment are not separate. All the manifestations of nature are made up of panch tattvas or 5 core element, Akash, Agni, Jal, Vayu or Prithvi. So, because everything in the nature is made up of same tattvas and tattvas keep transferring into each other, actually there is no other. Yomam pashyanti sarvatra ya pashyashi sapashyati. That who looks himself or herself in everything else and everything he looks at as part of himself or herself, that is the real view, that is the correct view, that is the Indian worldview talks about. Nature of time is also not linear in the yogic perspective. Nature of time has more like circular, but not circle which ends at the same point from where it started. It is the spiral. So, every time nature goes through one stage over other. So, all 4 types of yugas occur, all different similar tithis occur, but according to the manvantaras, according to the different cycles, there is some change in the human consciousness and as such the manifestation of the consciousness. So, a spiral view of time is prescribed, is held in the Indian worldview. What about human nature? Human nature in the Indian perspective is considered as ever evolving, inherently divine. So, inherently all jivatmas are divine because they are either Brahman or the reflection of Brahman or the manifestations of Brahman. So, depending on which school of philosophy you follow, Dvait, Advait, Vishishtadvait, etc. But inherently no school in the Indian philosophy and Indian perspective and yogic perspective is saying that human beings are sinners or they are inherently bad. Inherently human beings are divine, so is every manifestation of the nature, and human being more conscious, having the power of vivek, discrimination, they have to repeal the ignorance, and whatever the bad behavior we look at demonstrated by, enacted by the human beings is actually reflection of their ignorance. So, all sadhana, all tapas is aimed at removing that ignorance. Once the ignorance is removed, our divine nature naturally starts getting reflected. Nature of human activity, that is where the speciality, the very much special feature of the yogic tradition comes. It does not look down upon the sensuous pleasure. So, that is why calm is very important, equally important pursuit of human life. Artha, which is in the common terms it is understood as money, but inherently it is the social recognition or social reputation, it is also about the social well-being. Artha is equally important, as important is moksha, which is liberation, and as it is dharma, which is harmony within self and with all the social and natural environment. What is the nature of human relationship? If we look at how the yogic perspective and Indian perspective looks at human relationship with the fellow beings, we can see that there are lot of subtlety described and appreciated in the very different type of relationship. So, inherently sneh and shraddha, these are the two pillars of the relationship in the yogic tradition. Professor J.V.P. Sinha studied sneh and shraddha thoroughly in so many settings in the Indian context, but this sneh and shraddha reflected in very different proportions in different type of relationships. So, relationship with the cousins. So, there are no one cousin or there is no single term aunt or uncle. We have very different terms: Fufa, Mama, Chacha, Chachi, Bhavaj, Sarhaj, Devar. So, there are quite a few different terms for very specific relationship of human being, and different proportion of sneh and shraddha is prescribed in all the relationships. We will look at the now rasas and emotions in the yogic tradition, and that is where we look at emotions are very deeply and very subtly defined and classified in the yogic system. So, this is what we need to keep in mind in terms of the Indian worldview to further understand what are the ways of attaining well-being. Now, we have given this content, and there is also a picture of a lady with the saffron robe. This is the first documented picture which is attributed to be a picture of Bharat Mata. This was painted by cousin Abanindranath Tagore. He painted this in 1905 based on the novel written by Bankim Chand Chatterjee, from where the Vande Mataram Geet is taken, and this novel was written in the later part of the 19th century. So, based on the description, this picture of Bharat Mata is painted. If you look at this picture, in one hand she is carrying paddy, in another she is carrying piece of cloth, in one hand she is carrying a book, and in fourth hand she is carrying mala, the robe bead which is used for sadhana in different schools of thoughts. Cloth is reflection of the industrial output. So, clothing industry was the major industry when this picture was made, and paddy is the reflection of the agricultural society. Knowledge is reflected in the form of book, and spiritual pursuit and spiritual sadhana is reflected in the mala held in one hand. She is also wearing Rudraksha mala around the neck. She is also wearing the saffron cloth, which is the reflection of sannyas, which is reflection of sacrifice, sacrificing the individual identity, and sannyas, as the term suggests, having the equanimity of mind and equanimity in seeing different activities of the human life, and all these things are reflected in this term. So, this picture beautifully captures the Indian worldview and the yogic worldview. So, based on the yogic worldview, what are the ways of attaining well-being? There are 4 ways of attaining well-being, or you can say 4 steps of attaining well-being: Tattva Bodha, Indriya Jaya, Dharma Kriya, and Sukhayu Hitayu. Before I explain these, I must acknowledge Dr. Deep Narayan Pandey, and there is an interesting story why I must acknowledge Dr. Pandey in the beginning of this session. I have had opportunity to work with Professor Vishal Gupta in IIM Ahmedabad in offering a session to the student of IIM Ahmedabad. This is an elective course, very well subscribed, on the mindfulness, where he included yoga and also integrated the positive psychological aspect. So, this course was offered in month of October, November. In month of December, a news item about this course was published in a very famous Hindi newspaper, Dainik Bhaskar. In the Panipat edition, this was published. And in Rajasthan, Dr. Deep Narayan Pandey is posted as the chief conservator. He is the department head of the Department of Forestry in Rajasthan. So, he read this news and he read name of mine also in that news item along with Professor Vishal Gupta. He searched my number, contacted me and shared that in his family probably few generations have dedicated themselves for the study and spread of Ayurveda and Yoga. His father was a great scholar and he learned most of his knowledge about the Ayurveda and Yoga from his father, and he moved on to be a forest officer in his career, but he continued to study in this area. And in the phone call he said that Dr. Pandey, I am very happy to see that this kind of course is being offered in IIM Ahmedabad. I am a student of Ayurveda and I have also written quite a few things, quite a few articles in the newspapers in the different aspect of Ayurveda related to well-being and happiness. And if you do not mind, I will be happy to share that. I said this will be so wonderful, so nice of you, and I accepted all the content he shared with me with a lot of gratitude. So, this lecture draws very heavily from the content I received from Dr. Deep Narayan Pandey. So, these 4 elements or 4 ways of achieving well-being in the human life starts with Tattva Bodh, means knowledge. Tattva, and this knowledge is not information. Tattva means knowing something essentials or knowing essentials of some aspect of life. So, that is the Tattva Bodh. Bodh is realization, Tattva is the essence. So, in the Charak literature, in Ayurvedic literature, it is said that Tattvava Bodho Harshanam Utkrashtatamam. Tattva Bodh is the Utkrashta, very highly important thing for Harsha, for Prasannata, for happiness. Second element is Indriya Jaya. What Ayurvedic literature says that Indriya Jayo Nandananam Utkrashtatamam. To remain inherently happy, Indriya Jaya, control on the senses, is very, very good, Utkrashta, of very good quality. Third is Dharma Kriya. Dharma Kriya Harsha Nimitta Mukta. Dharma Kriya or working according to Dharma, not religion but Dharma. We have explained this notion earlier as well. It is about inherent internal and external harmony. Operating from that space gives happiness. And fourth is Sukhayu Hitayu. Opposite of that is Dukhayu, Dukhayu or Ahitayu. What a yogic tradition prescribes and Ayurvedic tradition explains beautifully is that Sukhayu means life of happiness is also Hitayu, means life of benevolence. No one can attain a happy life without crafting, without attaining, without practicing benevolent life. And if we look at these things closely, actually one factor leads to another one. So, until someone has Tattva Bodh, he or she cannot have Indriya Jaya. Until someone has knowledge, deep knowledge, they cannot control their senses. When senses are under control, then only we can do whatever is right according to Dharma. And when we enact according to Dharma, our life becomes Hitayu, which naturally result into Sukhayu. Hitayu, again Hit means benevolence, care, and Sukha means happiness, Ayu meaning life. So, a caring life and a benevolent life result into happy life. So, these 4 elements are connected. Now, we will look at each of these elements in details, or each of the ways of attaining happiness in detail. Tattva Bodh. So, when we say Bodh means to know intrinsically, Tattva which is essence of anything, in the Indian tradition and in yogic tradition we say that knowledge is not only about logical cognition, it takes place at least the 4 levels or the 5 levels. In the Panchakosha we looked at Annamaya Kosh, Manomaya Kosh, Pranamaya Kosh, Vijnanamaya Kosh and Anandamaya Kosh. Cognition takes place at all 4 levels, then only Anand occurs. I am not following that typology here, because that is primarily given for the Brahma Vidya. For the normal Vidya and normal education, Sri Aurobindo, the great yogi of the modern ages, he has given the typology or the different layers of self, and he calls these layers as physical, vital, mental and supramental. Supramental is comparable with the Anandamaya Kosh. We are not going to talk about that because that is more transcendental in nature. If we look at the physical, vital and mental, which constitute most of our day to day experience, knowledge must be understood in the context of, in light of, at the level of physical, vital and mental aspects of human self. Physical aspects we all know, it is the body. Body also knows. That is different thing, that many a time we do not give attention to what body knows and what signal body gives, but body has its own intelligence. You must have sense, it reacts to towards some kind of food, some kind of people, some kind of situation, and that experience may not be cognitive, may not be logical. You feel something within. In the body itself you feel something. In the modern psychology, it is known as interoception. Interoception meaning it is of different direction of perception. Perception is looking outward and interoception is looking inward. Interoception can be translated as antah drishti. Psychomotor, we all know psychomotor is a very important aspect of knowledge. The whole field of athletics or dance and any activities which are related to the physical action, they talk about the psychomotor capability. That is one aspect of knowledge. And in the psychology now we also are talking about embodied knowing. So, there is something which our body knows, which is much beyond, much subtler, deeper and many a time more reliable than our logical inferences. So, Tattva Bodh has to be at the physical level as well. When we are knowledgeable about these things, when we have strong psychomotor, interoception and embodied knowing, we can make our life more happy. The second level in the Tattva Bodh is vital, which is comparable to Pranamaya Kosh, which is about the energy body. That is where we experience emotional awareness. Emotional awareness meaning even before language, even before cognition, even before wordly articulation, we can feel certain things. So, knowledge at vital is about that. Knowledge or Tattva Bodh at mental level is about logical, rational, intellectual knowledge. Tattva Bodh ultimately result into wisdom, and wisdom is combination of knowing at all 4 levels. And as I told you, we are not discussing much about the level 4 because that is deeply experiential aspect. Even if we look at only first 3 aspects, wisdom can be understood as the synthesis of physical, vital and mental aspects. If we look at in more detail, these levels are related to mechanical and repetitive character, that is the first physical level. The next physical level is more subconscious and sometimes even unconscious. So, unconscious capability, we all know some people with the practice or sometime by birth have the inherent capability to bowl better, to play some game better or to do certain activities better. That is the deeper level of physical knowing, but the primary level of physical knowing is more conscious, mechanical, repetitive in nature. Vital can also be at 3 levels: emotional vital, central vital and lower vital. Emotional vital is that is a various feelings such as joy, love, sorrow, hatred, rest, etc. There is a central vital that includes stronger vital longings and reactions such as ambition, pride, fear, love of fame, attraction, repulsion, desires, passions of various kinds. Then there is also a lower vital which is comparable to id of our Freudian psychology, that occupied with the small desires and feeling, desire for food, sex, small likes, quick likes, dislike, vanity, quarrel, anger, blame, some of the lower emotions, more raw emotions, which is generally attributed to id aspect of our self, that is included in the lower vital. Mental aspect has also 3 levels: thinking mind, dynamic mind and externalizing mind. Thinking mind is concerned with ideas and knowledge, that is related to reasons and perceives with ideas of infinity, eternity, unity, identity, self contradiction, etc. That considers and finds out the value of things. So, that is the aspect of our intellect which makes the judgment, which discriminates. Then there is a dynamic mind that is concerned with putting out of mental forces for realization of some idea. So, that is the engine for vital or the emotional aspect. You remember we looked at the aspect of self as an allegory of the chariot in the previous session. Then there is an externalizing mind that is concerned with expression of ideas and knowledge and mental forces in life by any form such as speech. So, externalizing is what is reflected in the speech, in my action. Dynamic mind is that is the force behind controlling or directing the emotions, and thinking mind is even the bigger force, intellectual force, which makes the final judgment about things. Tattva bodh at physical level can be called interoception or psychomotor knowledge. Tattva bodh at vital level is about emotional awareness. Tattva bodh at mental level is about knowledge, which what we consider we call knowledge, which is intellectual, rational, logical, result of comparison, synthesis, evaluation. Bloom's taxonomy talks about the cognitive levels, that is primarily related to the mental level, and tattva bodh at integral level is called wisdom or pragya. Pragya can be also of a different order, higher order, which is called ritambhara pragya. Ritambhara pragya is the constituted of the word rita, which holds the rit, that kind of wisdom. And what is rit? Rit is the universal order. When person becomes wise to the level, he or she can experience and understand the universal order and choose his or her action which are in line with the universal order, that person is supposed to have that faculty called Ritambhara Pragya. So, there are different levels of wisdom as well as there are different levels of knowledge. So, wisdom also has a different levels as there are different levels of joy Joy we discussed in the last session as described in the Anandavali Tattri Upanishad, different levels of joy. You might remember the 1 degree of joy of the very youthful, all capable human being is if taken as 1 unit, then 100 units of this 100 times of this unit constitute 1 unit of joy of Manav Gandharv, and then the Deva Gandharv, Pitra, etc., etc., at different levels of joy. So, wisdom also is considered to be of different levels of possibility, but is inherently wisdom is about a integration of physical, vital and mental aspect of self. And the journal of American Medical Association, the very famous journal JAMA and the JAMA Psychiatry journal, it talks about 6 aspects of wisdom. So, there is a well developed wisdom literature in the psychology and neurobiology and neuropsychology streams, and they talk about 6 things: self reflection, emotional regulation, pro-social behavior such as empathy and compassion, decisiveness, spirituality, acceptance of uncertainty as the 6 aspects or 6 factors of wisdom. Now, this is a very famous review, you can go through this. This paper talks about different interventions done for enhancing the wisdom, and then they have found that there are interventions available at emotional regulation, pro-social behavior and I think decisiveness, but there are lack of studies on the interventions which aim at enhancing self reflection, spirituality, acceptance of uncertainty, etc. So, the modern literature of wisdom is falling very parallel to Tattva Bodha. That is what I wish to convey. Let us look at how knowledge, what we consider knowledge today and wisdom, how they affect happiness. So, there are studies which have looked at impact of education on happiness and life satisfaction, and these studies tell, one of them is quoted here: education leads to happiness, but not degrees. So, degrees are not the positively correlated or regress very well with the happiness, no. It result into happiness for some non-economic reasons. And what are those non-economic reasons? Non-economic reasons is we become, if education makes us more self-aware, if education makes us more logical, if it makes us more skillful, if it helps us in being more innovative, if it builds our self-confidence, which is result of knowing something better, then only education result into happiness. Otherwise, mere education which is not resulting into skill, innovation, self-awareness, self-confidence, that kind of education which is not leading to these factors does not lead to happiness. Another study suggests that less education makes people less happier as they grow older. Why that might be so? We all know that learning always happens in the form of relearning. Basically, all learning is relearning, meaning we learn on the basis of, at the foundation of what we have already learned. So, when we receive less education in the earlier part of our life, our propensity and ability to learn further in the life, that suffers. And because of that, as a sum total of our learning falls short in comparison to other people who are more educated, and that less sum total result into lack of confidence, lack of skill, lack of ability for the innovation, and that is why the less education makes people less happier as they grow older. The education in the earlier phase of life also gives up openness of mind, and because of that people can learn and keep learning further, and that suffers when people are not blessed with a good education in the earlier part of life. That is not the final judgment. Even if people have not received in the earlier part of life some very fancy, very high education, there are people who are able to continue to learn in spite of low education. They are found to be happiest in the studies. So, happiness has this interesting relationship with education. So, we must understand that Tattva Bodh includes education, but it is not only education, not only formal education. Tattva Bodh is more related to learning, and learning not only cognitive learning, it is related to learning at psychomotor level, emotional level and higher cognitive level. Now, you may ask, what are the higher cognitive level? Higher cognitive level are also called 21st century competency. These 21st century competency we talked about in the earlier session as well. They are the factor which distinguish average workers or average professionals from the best professionals. In the work of Boyatzis and his colleagues, it was found that there are two levels of competencies we can observe in any profession. First is the basic competencies, which is logical thinking, knowledge about the field, our basic mental abilities to carry out the activities required in the job. So, these are essential. If these are not there, people can't even enter most of the time in any profession. If they have these capabilities, that is not the guarantee of they will be successful in their career. If they just build these capabilities, and if they do not build other capabilities which we are going to mention just now, that also result into they not being able to grow very well in their profession. So, what are the capabilities which make people grow in their profession? These are called 21st century capabilities, and these are related to some cognitive aspect which are not simple logical thinking. It is about systemic thinking, it is about systems thinking, it is about looking at the pattern, deciphering the pattern, it is about emotional awareness and also about social intelligence. So, the 21st century capabilities are about systems thinking, emotional intelligence, social connectivity. These things are also understood in the yogic tradition as the part of Tattva Bodha, because when Tattva Bodha includes not only cognitive, but also higher cognitive, emotional and physiological, our whole being gets transformed. Until my whole being gets transformed, only fractional aspect of my personality, which is either cognitive or emotional, is not going to take me much ahead in my career. So, that is the relationship between happiness, education and Tattva Bodh. Second element or second way of achieving happiness is Indriya Jaya or self control. Indriya are the sense organs. So, there are 5 sense organs, sense of food, sense of taste, sense of touch, sense of smell, sense of hearing and the visual sense. In one session we looked at notion of self, and that is where we looked at the notion of self or the self can be comparable with the chariot, and chariot having horses. So, the horses are like indriyas or the senses, the rein with which these horses are controlled is like man or what we loosely call mind. Intellect is the one who holds man. So, intellect or buddhi is the one which holds the rein, and rein is man, and Atman is the owner, the observer of the movement of this chariot and also gives the broader direction. This is the allegory given in the Kathopanishad, we have already discussed this. Indriya Jaya can be understood with this allegory. When man is strong, then only it can control senses. but when buddhi is strong, then only it can control man. When buddhi and man are strong and then they give right direction to the horses or to indriyas or to the senses, then atma, the human self, evolves to the higher level. Then only transcendence can happen. Transcendence in the psychological sense can be understood as identifying with the lower self or having a limited identity, or identifying at the broader level, identifying with the universe, identifying with the community, identifying with the nature. All that can happen only when buddhi and man are properly holding or controlling and directing horses or indriyas. One term used in the yogic tradition as well as in the Ayurvedic tradition is called Sattvavajaya. Sattvavajaya is the psychophysical exercise designed to achieve a regulatory mechanism over human psyche in dealing with environmental stressors and subduing and balancing emotional stresses. So, this Sattvavajaya is studied by Raval in connection to the insomnia. There are many people who are not able to sleep properly. The cure of insomnia draws and has drawn insights, and as it is reported by many physicians and it is captured in this paper of Raval, from the notion of Sattvavajaya or Indriyajaya. People who suffer from insomnia, they have to manage their timing, they have to manage their routine, they have to manage their surrounding, the room environment, and that becomes very, very essential for them to fall asleep, to have a good sleep. This was studied. Otherwise, in all pursuits of life, Sattvavajaya is important, because that is the power, that is the condition to attain what we focus at. Many people may have great ambition to do great things in life. They might be having Shubha Sankalp as well, the right intentions as well, but they get carried away, and they get carried away in spite of knowing what is right path. They are not able to sometime remain on that path, and that happens because of the low Sattvavajaya. Yoga can help us to build that Sattvavajaya. It can help us to build Indriyajaya. Indriyajaya means winning over senses. That is the real victory. Victory is not that which is won over external things. Real victory in the yogic terms is about winning our own senses, an ability to. What is the meaning of winning over senses? Winning over senses meaning our ability to direct senses towards the dharma yukta, righteous goals, and righteous goal or dharmic goal, dharma as a purusharth, is not in opposition of artha, which is social recognition, and kama, which is sensuous pleasure. That is not in opposite to that, it is not in fight with that, but it regulates to what extent we indulge into sense pleasure or social reputation and social goals. So, Indriyajaya and Sattvavajaya are important aspect of attaining well-being. Let us look at how Indriyajaya or control or self-control or self-regulation is studied in the positive psychology. If you look at the 24 character strengths, these 24 character strengths I mentioned in the very beginning of this course are identified with the thorough research of various traditions, and Seligman and his colleagues have identified these 24 character strengths, which are called not talent but character strengths, because they give meaning, direction, purpose and sustenance to any talent. Temperance is the one core character strength identified in the schema proposed by Seligman and colleagues. So, self temperance is nothing but self regulation. So, as Indriya Jaya is identified very important aspect or way of attaining well-being, temperance is also identified in the modern positive psychology as a very important way of attaining well-being. Self-regulation, patience, hyperactivity, willpower, these are also reflections of temperance, and there is already a literature, there has been a literature on these aspects much before the proposition and the elaboration of the character strengths by Seligman and colleagues. So, there is a research on these aspects. Impact of these qualities is studied in context of various things like overeating, overeating, addiction, shoplifting, and this proceeding of the National Academy of Science 2011 reports these studies. We have found that self regulation, our ability to control our senses, have direct association with control on overeating, smoking, addiction and shoplifting, etc. Self control during first decade of life is found to be extremely well connected with how much your earning happens, income happens in the later years. It is also connected to saving behavior, financial security, occupational prestige, physical and mental health, substance abuse and lack of criminal conviction, among others. That is why for kids it is even more important, because it is like strengthening our mind has much higher dividend if it is done in the beginning of the career. If it is done in the beginning of the career or beginning of life, that builds the very sound foundation on which later desirable behavior can be enacted with much more ease. So, Indriya Jaya is studied in the form of self control in the psychology, and it is found to be very well associated with some of the very important aspects which make our life successful, which make our career successful. Studies also suggest that there is no such thing like too much self control. If it is result of the self motivation, if it is result of right tattva bodh, then whatever amount of self control is done, it does not harm. The self control which is imposed, self imposed by imposed of others, that can harm, that can damage in long term. But when self control is attained with the proper tattva bodh, with the proper insights into a thing, then no self control is too much. The outcome in the adulthood confirms that. So, disciplined childhood is not anyway makes people suffer in their adulthood psychologically. So, that does not happen. Remarkably, the predictive power of self control is comparable to that of either general intelligence or family socio-economic status. What does that mean? That means self control can compensate for general intelligence, and we have also seen in our research more cognitive resources if let loose, if people with the more cognitive resources or general intelligence, if they are not mindful, they end up becoming more agitated. So, that the current study, this slide also suggests that either general intelligence or family socio-economic status, both of these can be compensated by having right self control. So, there are a few questions. Does Indriya Jaya reduces happiness? Answer is, it increases life satisfaction and well-being, it does not reduces happiness. So, discipline is good. Abhyas and Vairagya, these are the two core, these are the two foundations of the yogic practice. We should not think about attaining well-being in life if we are not ready and if we do not practice abhyas and vairagya, if we do not practice self control, we should not hope for the well being in the long run. What yogic tradition says about reasons behind lack of indriya jaya? That means many times people know that what is the right behavior, but still they indulge into the wrong behavior. This is called Duryodhan syndrome. Duryodhan syndrome, many of you must have heard that when he was asked why you do what you are doing, the answer of Duryodhan, the character in the Mahabharata who was the head of the Kauravas and who did not give their rightful share in the property to the Pandavas, their cousins, and then the war of Mahabharata took place and all that destruction happened. Eventually Duryodhan was defeated. So Duryodhan was in the earlier in the text, he is asked, why do you do what you are doing? This is clearly not right. Duryodhan said that janamya dharmam nacha me pravritti, janamya dharmam nacha me nivritti. I know what is dharma, I know what is righteousness, but that is not my nature, that is not my pravritti. I am not able to indulge into it. Janamya dharmam, adharma bhi janta hu, I know what is not righteous, but that is not my nivritti. I am not able to get rid of that. Yogic tradition also explains why many of us suffer from this Duryodhan syndrome. I am calling it syndrome because it has impact on all aspects of life. So, there are two things, pragyaparad, ashtamendriyartha sanyog. These are the two things. Pragyaparad means not following dharma even after knowing that. So, we need to be conscious about dharma and we also have to enact according to that. To reduce the pragyaparad, Margaret Gentile has designed a very beautiful course called Giving Voice to Values. What this course is about? Course says that this course teaches students that you might be having right values, but you need to give voice to it, you need to enact on it. There are certain interventions which can make people, which can prepare people to enact on those values. So, to reduce pragyaparad, you can also have a look at the course on giving voice to values. A lot of that component is available online, you can check that. Another aspect, another reason why people are not able to follow indriya jaya is ashtamendriyartha sanyog, indulgence into the satisfaction of the indriya, satisfaction of the senses. For that we need to have awareness. If we look at the sense pleasure, that happens only for few seconds. A good food gives pleasure only those few seconds when it is on our tongue. Before that and after that it does not give pleasure. For that pleasure, for the pleasure of those few seconds, if we can hold our awareness, if we can hold our breath, we can control that. Yoga help us in controlling that ashtendriyartha sanyog. That means it can help us to look at this sanyog of the union of indriyas or senses with the substance, and look at that it is only a matter of few seconds, and if we can, and yoga also help us to have control on those movements. So, these are the ways yogic tradition can help us to attain indriya jaya. Ultimately, it is about well programmed life. That means having good hobbies, prayers, having commitment for the right cause, bigger cause. Some of these things naturally result into indriya jaya. If I am aspired by some big picture, if I am aspired by some what in Hindi called udat uddeshya, for a higher purpose, then naturally we will be able to control our senses. If we are inspired and motivated by those long term things, we can forego these short term, immediate term pleasures more easily. So, that is why dharma kriya is important. So, dharma kriya is facilitated by Indriya Jaya. Dharma kriya also helps into keep practicing Indriya Jaya. We are going to discuss that in the next part of the session.